Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening. Okay, so here we are on the last, I've called it the last Q&A of June 2020. And that is because next week is July. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I'm just checking. Yeah, the 6th of July. I'm just looking at my my calendar, which has all the trips on it that we've had to cancel. But never mind, we do have some trips, and hopefully you got the email today. Went out to all the members and anybody who signed up to the mailing list. So if you didn't get it, message me on Facebook, and I'll send you a copy of the email that went out today about the trips and about how the club's going to come back when we can get back in the pools. Tonight I'm dedicating this session to two people. I'm dedicated to Gabby, who blows my mind every time I catch up with her, and it was no different at the weekend. We went diving, and yeah, a brilliant time. Love it, love her, fantastic. Thank you, Gabby. Wearing this t-shirt for you, Gabs. And the second I'm dedicated to Donde Esta. I haven't seen him for a while. But I know he watches. Okay, so without further ado, I will not mention the Free Fest trip that's going on the 17th of July to Cornwall. I won't mention it. We'll just go straight in with the Q&A. So, it's a bit bright, isn't it? Oh, let me turn down the brightness. Hang on one sec. Is that a bit better? A little less overexposed. Fantastic. Okay, so Darren has gone in with the first question that's actually like a personal question, which is really quite cool. So the question is, obviously you may be able to see it, but what's your most memorable dive and why? Well, I usually answer that with a kind of the last dive I did, which weirdly enough was pretty damn memorable. So we were at the lake on at the weekend, and we did some fantastic dives. And we've been looking for the pike since lockdown. So I've been to Raysbury maybe 6 times since lockdown opened up, and we've been looking for the pike, and we haven't seen it. I asked Richard, the owner, got some cracking shots of the carp. Last year I got an award-winning photo of Freya with a tench in Raysbury on New Year's Day. So I haven't really got a good shot of the pike, and so we'd hunted for it, and we had asked Richard, to say the owner, where do you think it was? And he said, oh, sometimes hangs out over there, sometimes over there, and we have looked and we've looked and we couldn't see it at all. And we'd given up. So as me and Arnaud were just chatting, and we were like, yeah, we've given up on finding it. But Gabby and Alithia were determined to find it, and so they searched on. And hang on a sec, I will. They searched on, and let me just do this for you. You may like this. And they found the pike, and we had a great few dives with it. And let me just zoom out a little bit. Oop. I've lost it. I've lost it. Yeah, let me try again. Let me try and get it on there for you. I'm working hard. Sorry. Nobody's seen this photo, by the way. It's a little bit large at the moment, but nobody's seen this photo. But there we go. Here we go. That's the photo we got with Arno and the pike. Pretty awesome shot. And what we saw afterwards, we didn't even know at the time, was those little fish that were around his head. And I mean, you got to admit that's a pretty awesome photo. It's a pretty awesome photo. So that was possibly my most memorable dive, because it literally was the last dive of the day in Raisbury at the weekend. Fantastic day, fantastic dives. Obviously, I get to travel and dive with lots of people, and my most memorable dives are always the ones that things happened that we weren't expecting. Sometimes we're hoping for, but my second one, which I've got to mention, was last year in Marsa. We were just going out to a dive, so we're on the rib going out to a dive, and there was some dolphins spotted right on the reef. Dolphins, so we jump in, and they played with us, and I'm quite good at calling dolphins, so I kind of make the right noises, and they kind of come over to me, and I said to people, sing underwater, and Mark went down, and he got the wrong idea, and he sung actually blah, 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 and blew a trail of bubbles, and usually you sing underwater by going ooh, and you don't lose any air, but he got it wrong, and he trailed this trail of bubbles as he was singing, and there's this dolphin, big male dolphin, came in and just came above him and blew a trail of bubbles because he thought that's what the game was. And he just did it. And I don't know whether Mark saw the dolphin. Saw him the first time. He was maybe 6-7 meters down, and the dolphin was maybe 4 meters just above him, behind him. And I've got a photo of these two bubbles, these two kind of rows of bubbles coming out. It's just incredible. And we had maybe 20 minutes with them, so that was really good. Anyway, so that's most memorable dives. So Yui says, can you describe the rescue procedure for deep dives? How do you bring your body to the surface? Hand positioning and positioning for both divers. Well, there's quite a lot of variables in that. That's a good question, and there's quite a lot of variables. So what you've got to remember is from your open water course, and actually from the foundation course, the only thing you care about is getting your buddy to the surface and keeping them on the surface. The rest doesn't really kind of matter. I mean, they say take the air, kind of keep the airways out. Well, you're going to do that. If you've just rescued your buddy, you don't have to be told to keep the airways out of the water. Take the mask off. Yeah, you're going to do that. The most important thing you've got to remember is get your buddy to the surface, keep him on the surface. Okay. So, you said the rescue procedure for deep dives. Well, if it doesn't matter how deep they've gone, most blackouts are in the last section, most incidents are in the last section, so it's usually in the shallow section. So if you're talking about a deep blackout, then something seriously has gone wrong. Seriously gone wrong. And it doesn't usually happen unless the person's pushing, which usually means competition. So as soon as you step over that kind of realm of this is a deep dive and I'm pushing, therefore there's a possibility of a deep blackout, you're going to put in place other procedures than just one buddy doing a rescue. Okay, so that's why I say it's quite specific and quite kind of a complicated answer, if that makes sense. in the competition, or even if not competition, if you're just doing deep dives where there's a possibility of an issue, then you're going to put into place specific things for that scenario. If you are just playing, messing about, having fun, the chances of a deep blackout are very limited, and the chances of a deep rescue are even more limited because you haven't set up the procedure for it. So if somebody goes down and does a dive, does a photo or something, the buddy is waiting either time or visibility to kind of meet him at 10 meters. So if they have a blackout deep, the safety system is not set up for a deep rescue. Okay, does that make sense? So, but then again, they're not going to be pushing, therefore the likelihood is unlikely. If we're doing a deep photo shoot, then we'll put in place an extra safety diver who may have to go deep, etc., etc. But this instantly complicates matters. You are unlikely, and I'll say this out loud to the world, you are unlikely to do or make a deep rescue if you haven't already planned it. So if somebody comes up and goes, there's such and such, they're down there, they're on a wreck, they're down there on a wreck or whatever they are, they're down there at 20 meters and they've blacked out, it's highly unlikely that you will be able to do a rescue. Your adrenaline will go through the roof, your heart rate goes through the roof, and it's unlikely that you're going to make it to 20 meters, even to 10 meters. Okay? This is why we always set the safety diver off, because then they're in the mind of a dive, they're chilled, they're relaxed, and then they open their eyes, and if there's an issue, then they can deal with it. So it's unlikely to be able to kind of, after the incident's occurred, make a dive. It doesn't even have to be deep, so 10 meters is unlikely you're going to do that. So let's give Loic's safety setup as an example. So you'd have the boat, and Loic will be diving on the front of the boat, and Guillaume, with his deep safety diver, will be at the back with his own safety divers and his own countdown, and everything will be completely separate. So Loic goes down, and at the call, whether it's a time or they feel when he's turned and comes back on the sled, there's a certain point where Guillaume is set off, and Guillaume would go down to 50 meters to safety at 50 meters. But they're completely separate teams, so if there's something goes wrong with Loic, Guillaume doesn't know. His heart rate doesn't go up. It's just a call, and Guillaume go, and Guillaume goes. Yeah. So that's the way you do it. So when you say hand positioning, the position of both divers, it will depend entirely on what the situation is. Oh God, you're German. So there's a way of carrying called the Kopfklammer. I don't know. It's really bad German. Head clamp. Okay, I don't know why it's taken the German name. Kopfklammer. Anyway, where you hold the jaw and the back of the head, and you move the diver up. Now, the reason you can do this is you can raise a diver quite high up, and you can get hydrodynamic, and your legs will be out of the way. So if you're monofinning, you're not kicking the person. Obviously, if you're just hugging them, you won't be able to fin. So the head clamp, holding the person high means your legs are kind of free, and that's the generally accepted kind of best way for a deep rescue. There are other ways of holding people, and now in competitions quite a lot of time they'll have a sled, so they'll just hold under the armpits, and not sled, a scooter, and the scooter will be taking them up. So obviously you can't, they have to have a hand on the scooter, so that's it. Think about it before the dives, practice them. Doesn't really matter what system you use, as long as you know what it is, and it's an accepted decent system, not just a random system. You'll find just practicing some rescues. If you've got a deep pool, it's fantastic to do deep rescues in a pool, like Dive for Life, because you work out all those positions where you're not going to kick your diver. Okay, I hope that answered that question. Okay, clockwork 192. I was wondering, number one, two questions. Okay, how important is it to get weight spot on for shallow dives, Raisbury? Not very, not very. It's tough to get. I mean, I described about neck weights last week, and it's the same sort of answer, because in Raisbury, yes, it's shallow, number one, but equally well, you're going to be doing lots of different types of dive. You'll be on a 5 meter platform and then a 10 meter box or whatever it is, and this is a massive difference in buoyancy. Yeah, so from 0 to 10 meters, you get the maximum differential in pressure, and therefore the suit will compress most between 0 and 10, and then the same again between 10 and 30. So the suit is what changes your buoyancy quite a lot. Obviously your lungs do as well, but they're subject to the same pressure. Okay, so if you do some 5 meter dives and you get your weight spot on, so you can hover at 5 meters and it's gorgeous, you go at 10, you're going to be heavy. If you get it set perfect for 10 meters, you go to 5, you're going to be buoyant. Okay, so something like Raisbury, which is the example you've got, the example you've given, you kind of do the best of both worlds. Personally, I've been going to Raisbury quite a lot, and I'm diving more than I usually do, because I'm usually taking photos at the moment. But I still don't dive that much. So I want to be buoyant so that I don't have to do anything to stay on the surface. I've got heavy legs, so I float straight up. So I like to keep the water here. So I've taken off 1/2 kilo from my normal, kind of weights that I'd have in the lake, so that I'm buoyant, so I can chat and we can have a laugh. And if I'm teaching, I take my mask off because it's easier to understand me. But it does make the dive a little bit harder, but I don't care, because I'm not I'm more in the Raisbury scenario. Personally, I'm more about organising the group and chatting than or teaching than diving. Okay? If I was going to Raisbury and I was doing some training, then I wouldn't care about how buoyant I am, because but I'm not likely to go to Raisbury to do any sort of training that requires superb balancing on the weights. Yeah. If you're spearfishing, however, so shallow dives, you need to get your weights right. But then again, you're doing it for different reasons. You want to stick to the bottom, and you'll find that spearfishermen have clip-on weights. So if they're shallow, they can clip a couple of extra weights on, maybe 2 kilos extra, so they stick. And then when they go a little bit deeper, they can unclip them, clip them back on, clip them onto the buoy. So they've already got that covered. Okay, number 2, what's ice diving like? And will you do any trips this year or next year? Well, ice diving, when you've done the foundation course, I show a video about ice diving in Raisbury. It's fantastic. Now, Mika and Wendy quite often go to Finland and do some ice diving there. And apart from the fact that they've got saunas on the ice, and they drill 2 holes, and that's kind of what they do. They're mostly doing rope diving. So you cut a hole and you put a rope down and you dive. Now, to me, this is pointless. I've done it, I've tried it. It is exactly the same as diving without the ice. Exactly the same, except it's cold. Okay. There's nothing different. Once you're 5 meters down, it feels exactly the same as with the ice, without the ice. Okay. The fun for me is playing with the ice itself. So, let's say in Finland, where they have 2 holes, and you go in one, you swim along to the other one, and you play with the bubbles, or have people walking on top of you. And in fact, there's a video I put on YouTube, ice diving in Raisbury. And yeah, we did one dive down to the bottom, to where the platform was, and as soon as we got there, we went, yeah, this is exactly the same as normal. The only thing is, if you go off exploring, it's a little bit dangerous because you've got to come back to the hole, so you can't really go off exploring anyway. So ice diving is fantastic. Do it. And will we be running some ice diving trips? Well, yes and no. If there's ice in Raisbury, the call goes out. If for people who are qualified, the call goes out, we go diving. We go to Iceland, and there will be ice involved in Iceland, mostly floating ice, rather than diving under ice. And we will be going to Iceland, just like we didn't this year because of the pandemic. So yeah, come join us. Come join us. That's Hillary, by the way, not Clockwork 192. Okay, Julian. Good evening, Julian. When you are buddying, I'm sure there's two D's in buddying. When should you leave the surface to meet your diving buddy? Is having a long breath hold important for diving? How many? Oh, what? You just come in, ask your 3 questions. You've gone out, haven't you? You're just gonna ask your questions and run away. When you're budding, should you leave the surface to meet your buddy diving? Well, that's kind of answered when I said about the deep diving, the rescue for deep dives. When should you leave the surface depends entirely on the dive profile. So, for instance, Raisbury, it's always going to be less than 10 meters. So there's no point in leaving the surface when they get to 10 meters because they're never going to go past 10 meters. And equally well, the visibility is pretty bad. So unless you know they're going down the rope and up the rope, going down to meet them is pretty useless. It's much better in Raisbury to stay on the surface, see if they come up. In which case you're going on time. Oh, they've been down a little while. You know their dive profile. You know when they went down. They're looking around the boat. So you leave a little while. Then you go down and you look around the boat for them. But don't be surprised in Raisbury if you're looking for them to, I've got to do a rescue. They've been down ages. Oh my gosh. You go around and you come back up and they're already up. Because as you were duck diving, they probably came up. But visibility is an issue and you don't see it. Right? So that's what happens in Raisbury. Whereas if you've got a sled dive, or a rope dive, you've got a rope, so you can feel the rope. You can feel when they turn. You know how deep they've been. If you've been reading the rope, you know exactly how deep they've been. So, if they've gone to 20 meters, as soon as they turn, you dive. You'll meet them at 10 meters. If they're doing a really deep dive, then you're going to have 2 buddies who leave at different points. And in fact, if you watch the video of me coaching Herbert Nietzsche in 2007 when he did 214 meters, we had different safety divers, and I was like, it was like clockwork. I had the job of sending the safety divers off, and I had to send them off at this point, this point, this point. I knew the dynamic, the times of the dive, and I sent Arno off exactly on time every time. The other guy was weird and never went when I told him to, but that's beside the point. He always missed a dive, but there you go. So Loic always met him exactly at 30 meters, came up to 10 meters, waited there for a minute, gave him a bell to say his deco stop at time, and then up. So that was a safety dive where he had to be precisely sent at a certain time. Okay. I'm going to ask you a second one. You have had a glass of wine, haven't you, Julian? Is it a long breath hold important for diving? No, it's not. You don't even have to hold your breath. Some of my best video shots and dives I've had, haven't left the surface. So you don't even need a breath hold to dive. You can go out there and enjoy the ocean, call yourself a free diver, get out there, even without leaving the surface. So Hillary's nipped in with another one. How big an impact does water temperature have on equalization? None and loads. Okay, so physically being cold, is going to affect your the way your body works. Okay, but when you're free diving, you should be having a good suit on. So physically, you're not going to be losing temperature. So you're not going to get bunged up particularly. Okay, when you're free diving, because you've got the correct suit on. More important is your relaxation. So if you're not relaxed, you can't equalize. So as soon as you start shivering, it's going to be very tough to kind of equalize. But equally well, a cold shock will stop you equalising. And we see this quite a lot in Vobster, and you'll see it in Gildenborough, not so much in Chepstow, because Chepstow is so deep that the thermoclines, although there are thermoclines, they're not as in somewhere like Gildenborough or Vobster. When you're a couple of metres off the bottom, the thermocline is sharp and a big drop in temperature. And it doesn't matter what the end temperature is. If you're at 20 on the surface and you go down, it goes down to 10. You lock up, literally. You do that, and you're not going to be able to equalise. Okay, so the 10, it's not the fact that it's 10 degrees; it's the fact that it's changed from 20 to 10. Okay? So it's about relaxation. If you're cold, you're not going to equalise due to relaxation. You just can't get relaxed and soften everything. I've never had any problems with hands-free equalising in Iceland, so it's not, it's whatever, it's 2 degrees in Iceland, but you're getting in the water expecting it to be 2 degrees. So you get up properly, you set yourself up properly, you go in, you go, okay, I'm only in for 20 minutes, I'm in for half an hour or 40 minutes, whatever. You're mentally set for it, and you can relax, and therefore you can equalise. Wow, amazing pike. Darren, awesome photo. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good photo. Yes. Anyway, another Hillary's just on the questions tonight. And by the way, I don't know how many freedivers it takes to change a light bulb, so that's why I kind of skittered over it. Yeah, I just don't know. Number 4. Since freediving is quite mental, do you do a particular type of yoga meditation? Sorry for all the questions. Well, it is Q&A, so don't apologise for the questions. It's literally Q&A tonight. If you have a boxer and he's new and fresh and he's been boxing at lower levels and then he steps up, the likelihood of him performing well is unlikely because the pressure, the lights, the crowds, the people, everything's kind of changed. Whereas the world champion that he's going to fight against has obviously become world champion, so he's fought in the big lights and the big crowds and the pressure and stuff. So just by doing it a few times, you're going to get used to the situation, and the world champion boxer is going to be expecting what's out there, whereas a newbie who's never, it's the biggest fight of his life, not quite know what to expect. Okay. So for me, the biggest mental preparation for freediving is freediving. So get yourself into places, dive as much as you can, and literally what we do in the pool when we're trying to put people off with, somebody grabs your fin. First time somebody grabs your fin in a ring race, it frips you out. You come, oh my gosh, you come up, you're gasping for air. But when somebody's done it a few times, it's just somebody grabbing my fin, it's fine, it's whatever, and you get on with it. And it's that mental preparation that we really, really work in the sessions, so that when you're in open water and something unexpected happens, you have that mental capability of like, oh, that's all right. Or even before you get in, if you've dived in loads of different situations, sitting on the side of a lake and your fin strap breaks, or you don't have fin straps, mask strap breaks, you can deal with it because, it's just another dive. Yeah. So the best mental preparation is diving, time in the water. Following on from that, before a dive, I worked out a system in 2003. So this was my 4th big competition, because I only had them once a year back then. And I worked out that my best dives, competition dives that these were when I hadn't truly woken up. So I didn't wake up and kind of have breakfast and kind of go to the comp or to the dive. I kind of try to stay and I took a sleeping bag onto the barge in Cyprus. And a lilo, not sleeping bag. Didn't need a sleeping bag. I needed a lilo, and I took it on the barge, blew it up, found a little nook and cranny, and went to sleep. And I didn't really sleep. I just snoozed. But I found it really good that I didn't kind of wake up. And then when I got on the line, I was just kind of half in a daze, like, okay, what am I going to do? I'm going to do a dive. I'm going to do it, lanyard on, whatever. And just kind of did the dive. So this was my mental preparation, and I still use that today for when we're doing big dives. I will, for as long as I can beforehand, just be kind of vacant from like things going around me, to try and keep my brain activity low, my metabolism low, and stay in that state. So sometimes if I'm teaching and I'm doing that, I've still got that memory of that kind of feeling. And if you ask any of the seniors, they'll tell you that I'm going to do a dive now. I'm going to do a big dive. That I kind of just kind of get into that kind of half awake state as much as I can. 2 minutes, etc., to top. I can really feel my heart rate dropping, my blood pressure dropping, etc. And that all just comes from repetitive diving. And obviously candle blows, my special candle blows that I do, I can, the vasoconstriction happens, and that's purely from doing it again. If you're thinking of competition, your hour before your dive, realistically, the yoga you do, the stretching you do, you shouldn't stretch before a dive anyway, it's really bad, apart from cartolytic stretching or dynamic stretching, but it's really just to fill the hour, to give you something to do at every point. The meditation, it's may have benefits, but it's not going to be dramatic. Much more is your ability to know what's going to happen and just let it wash over you. Okay. And I'll give my same answer about yoga. The best yoga is the yoga you can make it to. If you're going to start yoga, find one close to your house. I can tell you the best yoga instructor in the world, but he lives in America. You're not going to go there, so it's pointless. Find an instructor you like that's close to your house that you can afford to go to, and you'll go. That's the best yoga. Right, so Laura, I have a question. Do you wear a dive belt under your dive bag for day trips? Yes. Carrying a weight belt around your waist is a really good way of carrying a weight belt. It centres the weight, because obviously it's like, maybe 4 or 5 kilos, quite a lump, and it centres it around your hip. So it's good for balancing, for walking, etc., be a little bit careful if you're going on a train, because it looks a bit dodgy. So I tend to wear it on the outside of my coat if I'm on a train or something, just to say, look, yes, it's a weight belt. Or have it in the bag. But when you're climbing over rocks, always wear your weight belt. Always wear your weight belt. Yeah. And it's, so walking and climbing to sites. That's where you want to wear it. Don't want to be carrying it like this, because it's going to be off balancing, and you could fall over and cut yourself. And it has happened. Okay, so hopefully that's cool. Hopefully I've answered your questions. If you're thinking of coming to Free Fest, sign up on the form. Let us know. We've got plenty of space. It's going ahead. It's going to be cracking. That's July the 17th. For a week-ish or something, a week, a bit more, whatever. You can stay down for a couple of days extra if you want, and enjoy Cornwall and what Cornwall has to offer. 17th to the 25th officially. We've also sent an email today. If you didn't get the email, Facebook message me and I'll send you the email. Thank you very much, and we'll see you on Wednesday for the club session in the park. So I want to see you there on time this time, Mika and Wendy, and Panos. But Mika and Wendy, you know where it is now. I want to see you there. Get as many people as we can, and I've worked out how we can upload it, so it shouldn't be a problem uploading. So thank you very much, and we'll see you Wednesday. Ciao, ciao.